When people wake up to the fact that gold and silver are the only real solutions, the only real insurance policies, there is going to be a rush into gold and silver like there has never been before. And I was in it in 1979, 1980. But if you think that Bitcoin got overblown, wait until they do the same thing with gold and silver, and they are going to do it. And there will come a time when it's time to sell.
This is Kaiser Johnson with Liberty and Finance, and this is the Miles Franklin Weekly Special for November 15th through 22nd, 2022, while supplies last. This week we have a Queen Elizabeth special, 2 coins bearing the portrait of the late monarch. First, we have a silver Britannia at only $8 over spot. While the Royal Mint has already started minting King Charles commemorative coins, they made the unexpected decision that this first run of 2023 Britannia would still have the portrait of Queen Elizabeth II. Our second special this week is silver maples. We secured a shipment of backdated silver maples, including full mint-sealed monster boxes from years prior to 2022, and they are available at $8 over spot as well. The silver maple, made by the Royal Canadian Mint, is 4/9 fine and was the first bullion coin minted to that exemplary purity. They are one of the most recognized bullion coins in the world. Both our specials this week, the Silver Britannia and the Silver Maple, are $8 over spot while supplies last. They come in tubes of 25 and boxes of 500 and are IRA eligible. If you'd like to learn more about a precious metals IRA, call us, and we'll be happy to help you in that process. Our number for all orders is 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237. We're available after hours and on weekends, and we look forward to speaking with you.
Hey everyone, this is Elijah K. Johnson with Liberty and Finance. And back with us today is our good friend Bob Moriarty, Marine, naval aviator, and financial author. Bob, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's a pleasure to see you.
One of the things I wanted to discuss today was the collapse of the FTX exchange, the scandal there, and how it seems like a lot of people are hurt because of that who are invested in cryptocurrencies there. So your perspective on on this particular story, and then how it seems like a lot of people can just be shut out of their funds if they hold it electronically like that. Your perspective on all that.
I get a lot of flack because nobody wants to hear cryptocurrencies are fraud, but the entire space is fraud. It is a solution running around looking for a problem to solve. Now, when you've got 1,000 people, 1,000 companies competing in that space, those people aren't serious. FTX is a perfect analog of what's wrong with our society today. Everything about it was fraud. It's just staggering. And the amazing thing is both of the guy's parents teach law at one of the top law schools in the United States, but it was fraud from the get-go. And here's the key, and I have said this before. The cryptocurrencies got as high as $3 trillion. 3 trillion, not billion, 3 trillion. That's an enormous amount of money. They have dropped by 2.2 trillion, and they're going to go to zero. There is nothing there. There is no there. And there is no value to any of the cryptocurrencies. They are electronic beanie-babies. They are fraud. They were designed to be fraud from the get-go. And if people have money still in them, they're going to lose it. And quite bluntly, if you've got fraudulent crypto coins in your wallet, or if you've got fraudulent crypto coins in somebody else's hands, it's still fraud.
So you're saying it's all fraud. What specifically do you mean by that?
Again, it is as simple as Bitcoin and all the other 1,000 variations doesn't do anything. Okay? You need to solve some kind of problem to get some kind of value out of anything. And the cryptocurrencies are electronic beanie babies. They've been run up by mass psychology, and there's nothing there. They're fraudulent.
One of the things that I think is very interesting is people point out that the underlying system, the blockchain, could be useful in the future. Do you see any value in the blockchain system at all?
Well, I'm glad you pointed that out. Calling it blockchain, it's confusing because nobody really knows what that means. Blockchain is a distributed accounting system as opposed to a centralized accounting system. Now, most corporations, including mine, including yours, has a centralized accounting system. It's on your computer, and you enter the data, and it adds and subtracts and does whatever it's supposed to. The cryptocurrencies do exactly the opposite. The accounting is done on all of the computers generating bitcoins. Now, to give you some idea of the value, when I bought software for my Macintosh, I think it cost $69. Okay? So an accounting system is worth $69 if it's a centralized accounting system. What's it worth if it's a distributed accounting system? And the answer is it is not worth $3 trillion. It's not worth $2 trillion. It's not worth $1 trillion. It's not worth $824 billion. It is worth nothing. It solves no problems. It's mass hysteria on the part of investors. Now, they did it in real estate in Florida in the 1920s, and they did it in the stock market in the 1960s. They did it in silver and gold in 1979 and 1980. You've always got these things that the mob wants to invest in, and literally they did it for beanie babies. And there were beanie babies selling for thousands of dollars. But at the heart, what was a beanie baby? It was a 79-cent stuffed toy. And once you lose sight of that, you lose sight of it as an investment, and it becomes speculation. There is nothing of value in cryptocurrencies. Now, here's where it gets interesting, because everybody thinks, well, the FDIC and the Fed and the Treasury and the other central banks are talking about going to central bank digital currencies. And the strange thing is, whatever advantage there is to the cryptocurrencies is the theory that they cannot be controlled in a central location. And of course, central banks want exactly the opposite. So they're not going to adopt Bitcoin. They have no plans for that whatsoever. They're going to go to central bank digital currencies where they control every single penny coming in and going out, and they know everything, and you have given up total financial freedom once they do that.
We did just see the rolling out of the digital dollar this last week, with the Fed announcing that they were going to be doing a test run with about a half a dozen large banks in the U.S. Your perspective on that? I mean, it seems like what you're saying is it's just going to be greater control over the monetary system and what people can do with their currency.
Well, that's what the intent is, but the intent of the government is never same thing as what the government actually accomplishes. They would like to have total control over every penny. And quite bluntly, if people are going to wake up to it and say, we're not in favor of governments having total control of our currency, in theory, if you do something or say something that the government doesn't approve of, they just cancel your money. You don't have money anymore.
Now, when it comes to, I guess, the implications we have with the digital dollar, it sounds like what you're saying is people are going to reject it because it's just too much control over the system. Is that really your view, that this won't be successful because the people won't want it?
the really interesting thing is the simple answer to your question is hell no. Okay, it's going to be rejected because it doesn't work. If you look at what the Fed and the Treasury has done over the last couple of years, they've just poured gasoline onto a fire. To give you an idea, the Vietnam War cost $500 billion. All of the inflation of the 1970s came from the United States not paying for the Vietnam War. But the war in Afghanistan and Iraq and Iran and Syria and Sudan and Somalia, and there's probably 5 other countries I haven't mentioned, all of those wars have cost $7 trillion, okay? Like 15, 14 times higher the Vietnam cost. There is going to be a price to pay for inflation. Now, what the government is always trying to do is they're always trying to get more and more and more control, but they keep screwing up everything they're doing. Vietnam cost $500 billion, and we have already donated $90 billion just to Ukraine. And Ukraine is the most corrupt country in Europe. And we knew that long before the war started. So we're doing some incredibly stupid things, and the price to pay is going to be high. And let me give you a real world example. Somebody sent me a really good presentation at the Zurich Gold Forum. And the fellow was talking about the cost of energy in Europe. And if you go back 2 years, the average family in Europe spent 8% of their income on energy. Now it's 20% of their income on energy. So it's up 150%. Now that's just the start of inflation. But for all of the people who have benefited from inflation over the last 30 years, which primarily stock market and real estate, everything that's been inflated is going to be deflated. So stock market's going to continue to crash, real estate is going to continue to crash, and the cost of living, food, fuel, etc., is going to continue to go up. So we've got the worst of all possible worlds. And they can come in with their central bank digital currency. That was actually, I think, a presidential order that ordered the Fed to take a look into it. And let's be candid, and I am not a Trumper, and I'm not a Democrat, and I'm not a Republican. We've got a government that's just utterly out of control. We've got $300 trillion worth of debt in the world. The sanctions on Russia are going to destroy the European economy. That's going to end up cratering the EU. It's going to end up cratering the euro, the British pound, and ultimately the dollar. We need to start having some leadership, and these feel-good solutions are the opposite of a cure. They're the problem. The government created the problem in the first place. We need less government and more leadership.
Now, you mentioned how food prices are going to be going up. And I know last time we had you on, you were talking about how this is really where revolutions start, is when people can't afford food. I did want to discuss the importance of the middle class, because in all of this that we're seeing with the Fed creating currency and these economic crises we've been seeing, it seems like the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer in a lot of cases, and the middle class is disappearing. Your perspective on the importance of the middle class in all this?
You have raised a good point. I think it's intuitive to all of your listeners. There are always going to be poor people. You can go to the richest country in the world, and there are going to be poor people. What is not quite as intuitive is that you can go to the poorest country in the world, and you're still going to have rich people. Okay? So there's always going to be rich people, and there's always going to be poor people. But the stability of the nation, the fabric of a society, is based on the size and the prosperity of the middle class. And when 60% of your people are living paycheck to paycheck, all it takes is a little blip, and all of a sudden they're poor instead of being middle class. Now, one of the axioms of revolutions is when the gap between rich and poor gets to be too great, the poor rise up, and inevitably, because they can't buy food, and run the rich people to the guillotine. And that's absolutely going to happen. There's so much happening in the world today. The mainstream is lying about everything. Somebody sent me a video of social disorder in Brazil, and in several of the major cities in Brazil, literally tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people are protesting at the cost of food and fuel. And let's be candid, okay, because we need to understand this. This is totally, absolutely artificial. It is an attack on the middle class. It's destroying the middle class, and that's going to be a bad thing over the longer term.
And what can we do to prevent this? Is there any way to, or should we just prepare ourselves, our family, and our friends for this eventuality?
You asked two questions there. One is, should we prepare? And the answer is absolutely yes. This is not a time to be buying real estate. This is not a time to be throwing money at the stock market. It's not a time to be on margin. It's not a time to be taking out any kind of a loan whatsoever. We're in a very scary environment. Now, if you go back to the fourth turning, all of this was predicted. And the issue is, do you go to a totalitarian government, or do people rise up and say, we want freedom? Now, I believe there's a lot of people in the world who are rising up, standing for freedom. Yes, educate yourself. Absolutely. There are no gurus. There are no experts, but there's a lot of information. If you go back to 1928 and 1929, there were 5 or 10 guys in the United States who knew what was coming. Bernard Baruch was one of them. Joseph Kennedy was one of them. All of the guys with the money knew exactly what was coming. Now, all that information is available to anybody who's got a cell phone. So to be ignorant today is voluntary. It's not mandatory. But the real key is your listeners have to learn to think for themselves. Now, am I saying that everything you read on the web is the truth? Are you kidding? There are more nuts on the web than there are in a supermarket. But if you learn to think, and if you learn to realize who you can listen to, who makes sense, life is simple. If you think about it, you're asking the right question. But some of this stuff, like belief in government, anybody who watched what we went through with COVID, who actually believes anything the government says, is ignorant. It is that simple. They lied from the very first day of COVID. They lied from the very first day in the attack on Ukraine. And as long as you're willing to accept lies, okay, you're going to be one of the useless eaters. They're going to turn you into a slave. You can do that, but what I'm saying is that's voluntary.
We have some viewers' questions here, and I did want to kind of move our focus now to kind of what we started this interview with, the FTX exchange. Actually, we have Alan wanting to know about the FTX scam and if it'll actually lead people into the precious metal sector, because as people start to distrust cryptocurrencies, they may move to other sectors. Your perspective on that?
100%. It's a great question, Alan. If you're given the choice between investing in something that's fraud or investing in something that's not fraud, what do? And believe it or not, $3 trillion went into the fraud. I mean, every time I badmouth Bitcoin, and this goes all the way back to 2017. In the comments, there were 5 or 10 or 20 guys saying, it's no man doesn't know what he's talking about. That's ancient history. I've been saying it's fraud for 5 years now, and it's been fraud for 5 years, and now people have woken up to it. When you can invest in gold or silver or platinum or palladium or rhodium, those are real assets. And rather than think about it as an investment or a speculation, they are insurance policies against financial chaos. Now, one of the things, and you will never hear anybody disagree with this, there's the best number that I've seen for debt in the world is $300 trillion. And I don't know a single person who actually believes that $300 trillion can get paid. So the government either has to raise taxes, and they can't do that because they're already taxing at the maximum, or they have to write the debt off, and they don't particularly like doing that, or they have to inflate it to infinity. And one of those three, or some combination of those three, is going to happen, and all of them are bad. The debt cannot be paid. The banking system is fraud. It's bankrupt. And the World Economic Forum says, give us all the assets because we're so much smarter than you. We're the rich, the powerful, the beautiful, and we should run the world. And I would challenge anyone listening, go to a history book and find me some stories about how the rich, the powerful, and the beautiful did anything but screw up their societies. I don't know any Americans who want to fight in Ukraine. Okay, unless the total nutcases. If you think about it, why would we encourage a war there? And the answer is we wouldn't. But the rich, the powerful, and the beautiful in Washington, D.C., they think a war in Ukraine is just wonderful, and it's bankrupting Europe right now. And the brain-dead idiots in Europe brought it on themselves. These sanctions were stupid from the very first day, and they're destroying the country. So what do? Do you invest in something real, or do you invest in something fake? And that is the solution. When people wake up to the fact that gold and silver, the only real solutions, the only real insurance policies, there is going to be a rush into gold and silver like there has never been before. And I was in it in 1979, 1980. But if you think that Bitcoin got overblown, wait until they do the same thing with gold and silver, and they are going to do it. And there will come a time when it's time to sell.
When it comes to kind of what you're saying is there'll be a loss of confidence, not only in the cryptocurrency, but also in currencies in general. This viewer is wanting to know about your opinion on what does it take for people to lose confidence in the currency? Basically, when are people going to lose trust in government? Your perspective on that?
Well, strange enough, the two are absolutely intertwined. One is exactly the other. What we've got is we've got a rush to the bottom. When you've got a debt-based system, and that's what the financial system of the West is, you always have more debt than you have money. And periodically, you need to reset the system. In biblical times, that was called a jubilee. Frankly, my opinion is they're going to have to go to a jubilee. A jubilee is far more attractive. In the Western debt-based system, the collateral for loans can be called if the loan can't be paid. Now, we know the loans can't be paid, and the World Economic Forum is saying, give us all the assets and we'll control everything. They're going to fail because of human nature. And anyone who doesn't believe this needs to go to YouTube, and they need to put in monkey envy. And there is a 2-minute and 43-second clip that shows if you feed 2 monkeys, you reward them with grapes and cucumbers. As long as each monkey gets cucumbers, they're okay. As long as each monkey gets a grape, they're okay. But as soon as you give one monkey a cucumber and the other monkey a grape, the guy that got the cucumber gets nuts. okay, and will literally throw cucumbers at you. It's the funniest clip that I've ever seen. I made a mistake. I said human nature. It's animal nature. It's true of birds. It's true of horses. It's true of monkeys. It's true of all animals, including the two-legged human species. We are not going to sit there and watch 1,500 of these idiots fly to Davos in their private jets. Somebody had a great article that came out recently and said the average billionaire in the world puts out 1 million times more carbon than the average person. And that'll give you some idea of where the real problem is. The problem is not with ordinary people. The problem is a lack of leadership. And I'm going to tell you, that's across the board. I would be hard-pressed to name half a dozen leaders. The Prime Minister of Alberta seems to be really savvy. She actually came out and she apologized for the Canadian government's reaction during COVID, and she took her entire medical board and fired them. And I thought somebody actually addressed the issue rather than the problem. Okay. So basically, if you got a choice of investing, invest in something real. Okay. As far as governments are concerned, it used to be in Europe that basically Europeans didn't trust their government. And I think that's the healthiest thing in the world. People don't go to work for the government because they're altruistic. They're trying to get everything they can steal. Anybody who trusts government doesn't understand the nature of government. So currencies are only based on pieces of paper, and every currency in the world today is on a rush to the bottom. Now, right now, the euro and the yen and the British pound are decelerating faster than the dollar, but the dollar is going to catch up to them. They're all going to go to zero. If somebody came out with a real currency based on gold and silver, they would be the richest country in the world in a year or two.
No, we are hearing rumors of that happening with the BRICS nations developing a new reserve currency, and some people say it's going to be gold backed. Your perspective on that?
I'm the guy saying that. And do I believe it? Here's the key. And I said this years ago, so I'm really proud of it. We are not going to go back to a gold standard because anybody wants to. Everybody hates the idea of a gold standard. We're going to go back to a gold standard because every other form of money has failed. And I think Putin is being way underestimated. I think the Chinese and the Russians are far smarter than anybody gives them credit for. And these guys have been accumulating gold and silver for years. Now, am I biased? Yeah, of course I am. I was buying silver when it was $4.05 an ounce. I thought I was the smartest guy in the world. And actually, if you're buying silver at $4.05 an ounce, you are pretty smart. But gold and silver are an insurance policy against chaos. And the one thing that we are guaranteed is there's a lot of financial chaos on the way. Now, you were talking about FTX, but actually when the Swiss National Bank and the British pension system, okay, almost collapsed the financial system in the last month or two. And every bond in the world, actually, somebody came up with a great number. This year's bond market is the worst going back to 1865. Now that's 157 years ago, the worst bond market. We're only starting to see the chaos. There is going to be far more chaos. Every pension system is bankrupt. The bonds are all bankrupt. The financial system is bankrupt. We need to go to a new financial system. And frankly, the BRICS and the Russians and the Chinese know the debt-based system doesn't work. And they're going to come around to the solution. They're going to go to gold and silver because it's worked for 5,000 years.
All right. Well, Bob, we'll have to leave it with that. Thank you so much for your time today. If our viewers are interested in learning more, they can go to your Amazon author page, check out the books you have available there. We will link that in the description of this video here. Any last thoughts before we let you go?
Yes. Go to my website, 321gold.com. If you like what I've got to say, I've got some interesting books. Go to Amazon, Robert Moriarty, and they're there. And I always enjoy talking to you.
All right. Once again, thank you so much, Bob, and God bless.
Miles Franklin Precious Metals is one of America's oldest and most trusted bullion dealers. Miles Franklin is A+ rated and accredited by the Better Business Bureau, licensed and bonded, and has 0 complaints ever registered. Here at Liberty and Finance, we are licensed brokers with Miles Franklin. To order, simply call us, discuss your needs, and we will let you know our live inventory, prices, and availability, and lock in your order over the phone. Once your order is locked, the price is held for you regardless of market fluctuations, and the metals are reserved for you awaiting your settled payment. Within 1 business day of ordering, you will receive an email invoice detailing the order and payment instructions. Miles Franklin accepts payments by bank wire, ACH or electronic check, money order, check mailed priority mail, and cryptocurrency. The fastest forms of payment are bank wire and cryptocurrency. Upon settled payment, metals will ship out within 3 to 5 business days. You will receive tracking information via email. Domestic shipping charges are $15 for any order under 500 ounces of silver or 10 ounces of gold. For orders larger than that, domestic shipping is free. The package will be double boxed, fully insured, and labeled discreetly, with no indication of the contents inside. For your privacy, the name Miles Franklin will not even be on the package. To talk to myself, Elijah, my brother Kaiser, or my father Dunnigan, call 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237.